My husband just left me because he's been hit on by a woman for the first time in his life. My husband just told me he is leaving me, and I can't believe the reason. I need to give some background. I am 34F and my husband is 38M. We've been married for almost 2 years, have dated 2 years before that, so overall a bit more than 4 years. He's always been very insecure about himself, even though he has a great personality, or so I thought, is generous, caring, can express his emotions and all this stuff. When I got to know him better, I couldn't believe he wasn't taken. In fact, he had only been in 2 relationships in his life, both 5 years long though. He told me that's because he's shy and ugly and women don't really want anything from him, like ever, especially not good-looking ones. I am fairly conventionally attractive, and he has kept telling me for the past years how lucky he feels to finally have found his dream woman, and then her being as attractive as me. I was wary at the beginning though, so I let him court me quite a bit before going out with him for the first time, etc. I really was fearing for some dark secret of his that I just hadn't uncovered yet. Plus I don't want to look easy. But turns out no, he's a really sweet guy and just very shy. I also don't think he's ugly. He's not in any way super handsome or so, and frankly originally I thought he was not my type, but his charm melted all of that away quickly. Once we started thoroughly dating, things went fast, because it all was so wonderful. Well, apparently a while ago he was on his own in the outside area of a restaurant having lunch when this woman went by, and apparently struck up a conversation with him. He's shown me a picture of her since I asked him, and she is drop dead gorgeous. Maybe I am exaggerating because I am so mad, but she definitely looks better than me, I have to admit. He didn't tell me much about what they talked, just that she was very friendly, and they exchanged numbers, and started texting more and more often. He says she at some point openly started pursuing him, even though she knew he was married, saying she just really fell for him and can't let this opportunity pass. He said that he was hesitant once he realized that she was hitting on him, and he was also excited because this literally has never happened in his life. In the past he repeatedly said that women, at least attractive ones like me, have it easy, because we can lean back and let the guys approach us, whereas for him it was always hard work to even get a single date. I always replied that it's not really like that, and that being attractive has its own problems. But he then always reminded me of the fact that he had to work really hard to get me to date him, too. He swears he has only met her one more time for lunch after the first encounter, and that he thinks it is not yet an affair. However, he thinks he wants to go forward with her, because as he put it, this is the first woman who is genuinely interested in me. I didn't have to text her for 3 months to get a date or anything. I can't let this pass. Or something along those lines. My memory is a bit hazy. The 3 months refers to the time it took him to get a date with me, BTTU. And that is why he says he is breaking up with me. He says it's the right thing to do, because he wants to continue contact with her, but also feels doing that would be emotional cheating and he doesn't want to cheat on my, so he ends it before actually starting something with her. I feel devastated. I know there's nothing I can do. I want to be mad at him, but I am also mad at myself. I really liked him when we first met, why didn't I give him a hard time? If I had said what I wanted back then, if I had pursued him instead of playing hard to get, he probably wouldn't be interested in that woman. But I always felt if a woman does that, she shows she's easy and I didn't just want to get laid, so I thought I must act that way. And now it is biting me in the butt, and I of course am very mad at him, but he didn't even cheat on me. He's behaving exactly the way I always say people should act when they fall in love with someone else. Ugh. I kinda wished he had actually cheated on me with her. That would actually make it easier. Thanks for letting me rant. I don't need advice. I know I'm fucked. Edit, this is much appreciated. And also some of you made me really think. I still feel this was unwarranted, and if he was so unhappy he should have told me. But I guess I wasn't as good of a wife as I thought. I didn't really show him that I love him, and why, and didn't put in much effort. And someone said he was starving for attention, and I guess that's my fault in a way. Still, I think just dropping me like this isn't right. I managed to get the courage to talk to my BFF, and we'll meet later so I can tell her everything, and she spontaneously will take me out for a spa weekend. I hope I can get my head clear there. I was so scared, but she was not at all condescending. She's the best. I feel like I couldn't have mustered up the courage for that were it not for all your support, so thank you all so much, even the critical ones. Comments. Comment 1. If this is real, she has admitted some real issues with how she treats him. She didn't know about his dating history until now. She keeps bringing up that she's hot, and he isn't, but it's okay cause she loves him. I have a friend who only dates men she doesn't think others will find physically attractive, so they will always worship her and she doesn't have to do anything but exist. This kinda sounds a bit like this. She's never bought her husband little gifts? Never given him a massage? It sounds like she has been giving him breadcrumbs for years and he thought that was all there was until Jasmine gave him a whole piece of cake. She has interest in his hobbies. This whole situation is sucky. Comment 2. Oop never put together that her ongoing treatment of her so led to this. She never treated him like a partner. And he found someone that does. These two need to learn how to communicate in a relationship. The ex-husband is right. They are not right for each other. Update. A couple days ago I posted here about my husband suddenly leaving me because of, well, having experienced for the first time that a woman actually showed active interest in him. Since links are not allowed in this subreddit, please check my profile for my post history. Yesterday my husband and I met for the first time since he up and left last Friday. And frankly, after the meetup I was very shaken, so it took me until today to be able to write about this. Since so many people have reached out to me with helpful comments and all, I think you deserve an update, but I really wasn't up to it yesterday also. This is really long, so sorry in advance, there's just so much to cope with. So here we go. The situation felt very awkward. And I got the impression the whole time that he genuinely feels sorry for how things were, and that what he is doing hurts me. I know many of you said he's a douche, a cheater and whatnot, and I really understand you and are mad at him myself. But on the other hand, you all do not know him like I do. He's a very honest person, he despises lying, and is really bad at this. He carries his heart on his tongue and I know him well enough to sense his feelings. Did that help me? Not much. Now, even if I wished I couldn't paraphrase our talk, and I am sure I will miss certain things, and overall, it was a mixture of him telling and me asking questions, and all is a big flurry in my head, so I'll just summarize I guess. First he told me that he really loved me, and he still does, but he feels that his feelings for the new woman are stronger. He told me her name, let's call her Jasmine, not her real name. He admits Jasmine is gorgeous, but claims that that on its own was in no ways relevant for his decision. Yeah, right. He told me that she originally approached him because of a book he was reading during lunch. Supposedly, the book's author is her uncle, and she was able to tell my husband some funny stories about the time her uncle drafted that book. He says he and Jasmine have very similar interests. Jasmine also reads sci-fi as he does, because of said uncle who is a sci-fi author and both like gaming and stuff. He says after they exchanged numbers, they initially only wrote about stuff like that, and later on they talked about other hobbies and interests and found more and more common ground, as he put it. He also admitted that like 2 weeks or so ago he started to wonder if he should actively tell me about her, seeing how she turned from an acquaintance to what he deems a friend. I interjected that they don't know each other long enough to consider her a friend, but he says he feels Jasmine is really genuine with him. This is a man who cannot pick up social clues unless they are spelled out for him, but whatever. He also feels a lot more in tune with Jasmine than he does with me. Admittedly, we seem to have less common interests, but I never felt like I have to be exactly like my partner. Opposites can complement each other well, and I always felt we do. Well, looks like he feels much happier with someone catering to his interests a lot more. He also became a bit self-critical then. He says after he left for his friend's place, he sat down and reread his conversation history with Jasmine, and he realized that she had indeed been flirting with him before she told him she wanted more. It didn't start out flirtatious, but he admits he totally missed that. He opened up the app on his phone and showed me the beginning and then when she started flirting. He might have tuned the messages, but at least the beginning's really ready friendly. The flirtatious parts, however, were blatantly obvious in my eyes, but he actually blames himself for that, and says that while that doesn't change his feelings for her, it means he should have noticed this earlier and well, he said, make the decision to pursue her earlier. That sort of broke me and I started sobbing, because it sounds as if I never had a chance compared to Jasmine. He even wanted to console me, and I allowed that for a couple minutes, but then I sought some distance again. It both felt good and bad to be in his arms. Then it was time to ask me why she is so attractive to him that he leaves me, his wife, for just the mere possibility of being with another woman. I mentioned that someone I didn't say Reddit suggested she might be a scam, or just interested in breaking up marriages and going after men who are taken, and such. He of course vehemently denied that. Supposedly they met last Sunday to go out for dinner, and they talked about the fact that she approached him even though he is married, and she claims to have a really bad conscience about this, and that she never would have done it, had she not felt such a deep connection between them. I must admit I really struggled through that part. Because if it is true it hurts me, and if it isn't, it hurts even more that he falls for BS. He then told me in excruciating detail about his dating life, and how long he was a virgin, and how he was always treated by girls back in middle school and high school, and by the women in college and later on, how he really feels that he always has to be the one initiating, fighting even for a chance, and felt like he was always treated as unworthy by almost all women, and how that made him bitter. He admitted that, but also how he always thought that someone who truly fits him, fits his personality, his character, his being, would be someone who would not make him jump through hoops, someone who'd outright tell him she is intrigued by him and wants him. He says he loves me dearly, and was always very grateful for being with me, but that even with me he always felt somewhere between a beggar and the subject of a pity party, where I bestowed the grace of my companionship onto him, instead of actually liking and wanting him. When I asked him whether that means he settled for me, he vehemently denied that. He said when we started to date, I really treated him better than any woman had done before, so he really thought this was what he had been looking for, and before meeting Jasmine he never felt like he needed more. I of course tried to tell him that I am not with him out of pity or anything, and explained why I made him wait 3 months, and why I think the man should court the woman and so forth. And then I also admitted that I might not have given him the appreciation he deserved. This time it actually was his turn to drop tears for a bit. He said hearing that made him both grateful and unhappy that he never really communicated better about this. I told him that hearing him say that feels like he is putting the blame on me. And I swear to God, his eyes like doubled their size, and he looked genuinely shocked, and he apologized many times, and said he did not want me to think he actually has any bad feelings about having to wait back then, and that this is a situation where no one is to blame, but especially not me. He said I have been a wonderful wife and all, but that with Jasmine it just feels different, and like a deeper connection that the two of us have, and that while he thought that I was wonderful, he now realizes that what he really was looking for in life was something else. So he says reconciliation is not really an option because he realized that we're not right for each other, and even if it doesn't work out with Jasmine, he knows now that he actually needs something that I just not am. I mentioned marriage counseling, and he said that it's not like our marriage has issues, but that the issue is that we're just not right for each other. There were more things we said, and maybe I'll add some later, but right now I am too mentally exhausted. Especially because I still don't feel like I can hate him. Because he felt so freaking honest. I think he at least truly believes all the things he said, but that woman still might be a total liar or a scam. He at least promised to be careful with her financial-wise, but he assured me she's not that. I don't know what to make with any of this. It hurts. I guess my marriage is over. Now, for the next story. My sister struggles with infertility. And although I feel awful admitting it, part of me is relieved. I, 28 female, have an older sister, Angela, 30 female, whom I have never liked. She always had to compete with me, but never in a normal sibling rivalry way. Our entire life she always seemed resentful of my existence, as the spotlight couldn't perpetually shine on her, so she had to step on everything I enjoyed. Per se, if I learned piano, she had to learn piano. If I excelled at a subject, she suddenly became a scholar in it. If I told my mom I had a crush, Angela would be dating that boy in a week. I would always tell my parents when she did this, but I was disregarded, because sisters copy each other and I can't gatekeep what she likes. She always monitored what activities I did, and the clothes I wore, so she could outdo me. If I wore a flannel, Angela would come to school wearing an all-flannel dress. It was 2010, and that was peak fashion in our school, El Mayo. There was also more praise that followed Angela. Even if I took the initiative to begin the activity first, she was praised, because she was better. My parents would miss work to attend her dance recitals, going to every single one, because the world would stop if they missed it. However, I remember maybe 2 of mine they attended because they were stuck at work, or were otherwise preoccupied. Angela reveled in this. She would make comments under her breath around our parents. Whenever our parents weren't around, she'd tell me how much she hated me, and how I should stop trying because I would always come second to her. She also physically bullied me in school. Angela purposely tripped me, threw things at me, and hit me in the hallways on a nearly daily basis. The school had gotten involved multiple times, threatening Angela with suspension, and my parents fought it every time. My parents repeatedly told administration that this was a family matter, and we were just bickering like normal sisters. She was never once reprimanded by either parent. Once Angela was caught impaling a cat on the school fence, and my parents still defended her, saying this was normal teenage behavior. I often was in trouble as Angela would start crying, saying how she was being targeted by the school when I had antagonized her. After one of these occasions, Angela cut and bruised herself to prove to Dad that I was the aggressor. I became a pariah due to Angela's malicious rumors about me, so it was difficult for me to make friends. I resorted to only befriending people from other districts. Angela eventually made sure I had nobody by stalking them, befriending them, telling all my friends lies about how I was favored by our parents, and I constantly bullied and belittled her. She even stole boyfriends of mine doing this. convincing them I was horribly mean and an awful person that copied her every move. Once she catfishes me on MySpace for 4 months, and baited me into sending her nudes, which she proceeded to send my parents and everyone in school, including teachers. Later on, she told one of the boys I liked that those were actually her pictures and I had catfished her. The day of my high school graduation, my mom sat me down and told me Angela revealed the horrid abuse she'd suffered at my hand and I was no longer welcome in their home. After moving out the next day, my parents made very few attempts to communicate with me, only the occasional holiday and birthday text. All financial aid was also abruptly ended as soon as I stepped foot on campus. I met my now husband shortly after this and we were married within a year. They did not feel inclined to attend my wedding or even congratulate me. I informed my parents when I had my first child 8 years ago as an opening, but they have made no attempt to contact or meet any of my 3 children. Best I know of Angela now, from what I've heard, is that she got married to one of the boyfriends she stole from me in high school, and she's been posting about her infertility issues and how she can't offer my parents their first grandbaby. After years of silence, I received a text at 8 this morning from my mother that I will copy and paste below. Hey name. It's me, your mama. We haven't talked in a while and I surely miss you terrible. I wanted to let you know your sister just had a miscarriage earlier this week. Angie and Justin are struggling a lot right now. Send something a little sweet her way. I'm sure she'd appreciate it. Get back to me, I love you. I hate to say it, but I'm glad she's suffering. I'm glad she doesn't get to be a mother. If she tormented me for years, what would she do to a child? Especially a girl? I don't wish death on any baby, but I know in my heart the child would be damaged by her. I'm angry at my parents expecting me to have any sense of obligation to her. I don't even have any sense of obligation to them. They always believed her and dismissed me. I was always the problem child. And it's strange how my mother can be so warm to me when asking me to do something for my sister. Also the fact they cared more about my sister's now dead fetus than my actual children, who wonder why they only have one set of grandparents. I feel some sort of guilt for it, but I refuse to offer any condolences to my destructive narcissistic sister, who has been justified in her bad behavior since birth. Maybe this will change her, help her develop empathy, or any type of emotion that isn't hate or vindictiveness. If that happens, I would be more than willing to offer support, but until then I feel nothing but a small inkling of happiness that she's hurt. Am I awful for this? Comments. Comment 1. What the actual fuck? 100% pleased that someone who abused an innocent animal as a teen, not a child, is unable to turn that abuse towards an innocent child. The family are insane to think they can steal Oop and her husband's biological child. And anyway, if Oop abused her sister and made her life hell for 18 years, why would she want her child as a constant reminder? Completely bonkers. Comment 2. Yeah. I worked with someone that was truly awful. Hired as a CTO of a small company. Very confident because of work he had done in the 90s, but barely knew how to use a computer anymore. Disliked by everyone aside from the owner. Would brag about himself constantly and badmouth everybody. Petty, vindictive, always the victim, could never take responsibility, and with an obsession over controlling the narrative. He would relentlessly irritate people he didn't like in an attempt to get them to blow up on him in front of others and lose their credibility. You got the sense that you were actually hurting him if you told him a story about something impressive that you had done. He mentioned once that he didn't talk to his brother anymore because his brother got pleasure out of antagonizing him, and I'm just wondering if his brother is actually awful like him, or maybe his brother is the well-adjusted one that stopped tolerating his bullshit. I'm wondering the same thing about this story. I want to hear that other perspective. Update. Hey, I'm back with an update. I wanted to thank all of y'all sincerely for the comments, awards, and personal messages I've received. I feel very emotional knowing that my account of my childhood is finally being believed and met with warmth and support. It's been hard for me to talk about, as many believe I'm being disingenuous or overdramatic. It's hard to believe, so I get it. So really thank you all from the bottom of my heart. I decided not to respond to my mother. I blocked both my parents and I thought it would end there. But when does it ever? Wednesday morning, my messenger was being flooded with texts from my parents' siblings. Most of the messages consisted of me being told I need to answer my mother's calls and how callous I was being. I proceeded to block all of them as well. My cousin heard this from her younger sister, who is subject to being around my parents and Angela for family dinners. My mother and her siblings all live within a couple blocks from each other and eat together most nights. I don't know if I can post the screenshot, so I'll type out the messages. Aunt Kathy, my mom. I hope that makes this easier to understand. Angela kept calling up an abusive ingrate because she wouldn't talk to Aunt Kathy. Aunt Kathy said they need to start inviting Op to family so she comes around to being a surrogate. It got weird RQ, because Angela said she wants to use my husband's sperm so her kid is tall and has blue eyes. Then Kathy was saying how they just need to be around her for like a year, then they can cut her off again or WTV. Angela kept saying Op is the only way she can have kids because she doesn't want to raise someone's trash baby. Reading those messages made me want to hurl. Do they think my uterus is some fish hatchery that can be bought with some kind words and casserole? It's nice to know Angela is too much of a narcissistic ass to adopt though. I'm officially done with every single one of them. If they try to come around me, I will get a restraining order before they can even darken my doorstep. Between the weak conspiracy they've come up with to try to use me like a baby bargain bin, and the nasty words they continue to speak about me, I will no longer claim to have a family outside of the one I've created. I'm sorry if this is difficult to read, but reading that again just got me so worked up. But why all finally got the update you asked for, so that's the silver lining of this, I guess. Anyways, thank you guys again. Now, for the next story. Ada for telling my husband that, despite our concerns, we need to just go ahead and buy our daughter a new car. My daughter Casey, 17 female, worked and saved up money for around a year to be able to afford a better car than we could buy her with our family budget. My other daughter Alana, 16 female, has a DHD, recently got her driver's license, and asked to drive Casey's car. Casey allowed it, but Alana ended up having a bad accident around 6 months ago which basically rendered the car unusable. The insurance payout wasn't nearly enough to cover the replacement, and with Alana's medical bills from the accident, thankfully there was no permanent damage, just a broken arm and leg. There was no way we could afford to replace Casey's car immediately. Alana was very apologetic to Casey, and so were we since we couldn't afford to replace her car. Casey didn't accept our apology, and has been basically avoiding us, skipping family dinners, and pretty much pretending that her mom, Alana, and I don't exist, and only talks to us if she needs a form signed for her school. I begged her to come to a family therapy session, and she eventually relented, but with the condition that Alana wouldn't be present. In the therapy session, she told us that she won't be resuming a relationship with us until we replace her car, which realistically won't be until next year. When the therapist asked how she expected us to do that, Casey said we could just make Alana work to earn the money. The issue is that Alana has severe ADHD, and already has trouble managing her schoolwork. I'm worried that making her work to earn the money will harm her grades and have significant ramifications for her future. Casey said, well, she should have thought about that before destroying my car. I don't care. I'm not going to speak to any of you unless I have my car replaced. I responded that she was free to avoid speaking to me for as long as she wanted to, but I'm not going to permanently harm her sister's future to get her a car earlier. My wife agrees with me that we need to stand firm on our position, but is also genuinely afraid of Casey never speaking to her ever again. I understand that her car was ruined, but as a parent I need to look out for all my children, not just one. I also don't want to set the precedent that emotional blackmail will work even if what you're asking for is unreasonable. Comments. Commenter 1. I'm with Casey on this one. You're coddling your youngest. And you have no idea if having a job could actually help your youngest learn to manage her time. You've left your oldest hanging. Commenter 2. You're shitting all over Casey to protect Alana from the consequences of her actions. If her condition is that bad, why was she allowed to drive in the first place? Update 1. Casey has held down a steady job for over a year now, and was able to get herself a car. Now, she got this car right as Alana passed her own driver's test, so there was a little issue between who was going to be driving. After a little persuasion, Casey did allow Alana to use her car so long as somebody else paid for gas. We told her that wasn't going to cut it. Alana doesn't have the money for that, and it's her car, her responsibility to keep gas in it and keep it on the road. Here's where it gets difficult. Alana wrecked about a month ago. Luckily she was fine aside from a broken wrist and a mild concussion, but Casey was fuming the entire time, and seemed to have this expectation that we would be replacing her car. Her and my husband got into it, and she threw her arms up like a child and just stopped speaking to us. We coaxed her into going to family therapy with us, though it wasn't productive, as she and the therapist agreed that it'd be best to maintain the reduced contact until she's paid back. Here's the problem. That car was $15 grand. She saved up every penny for a year for that car. She'd ask us about twice a week if we changed our mind, and obviously the answer was no, but that was the only thing she'd say to us. It didn't seem to bother my husband, and he kept saying she'll get over it. Until last week she packed some things and had my mother come and get her. She's been staying at her grandmother's for a little over a week now, and she gave me a good earful. Whatever Casey told, he worked, because earlier today my husband and I were informed we had 30 days to replace the car in full, or she was taking us to court. I think my husband is admirable in wanting to stand his ground, but the way I'm looking at it, we have two options. And I am sick of my daughter not talking to me, because of shit that is not my fault. Alana has been a wreck. She's already battling severe ADHD, and now she's shaking at the thought of having to appear in court. So I sat them both down and said we have two options. We can suck it up, pay $15,000 and have our daughter and sister back, and Alana will just have to buck up and work. Or, we can let my dad sue my husband and I on Casey's behalf, and almost certainly lose. We spoke to 4 different firms and all 4 echoed similar sentiment, that it would probably cost us close to triple in the end to bring it to court and fight it there. So that's when I told my husband that I am not going $30 grand further into debt for him to hold the pettiest grudge. He's saying that I'm being manipulative by holding this whole situation over his and Alana's heads. I'm not saying it's not part my fault. All I said was that no matter what, at the end of the day we owe Casey and he needs to just accept that. We can afford $15,000 to replace the car. But if we have to dish out double that, just to lose in court anyway, I'm divorcing him before he makes that mistake. In either case, I'm done not supporting both of my daughters. We've tried reasoning with Casey and it has resulted in nothing. We lost this one. Ada for trying to get my husband to accept it? I feel I may be. Just for how long I was being a passenger, no pun intended, in the situation, and for threatening my husband with divorce, I don't think we did anything that wrong, but I'm willing to admit when we made some mistakes and we have to make up for it somehow. Update 2. It's been a few weeks since I last updated, and I want to start out by addressing a few things that opened my eyes a little bit in regards to this situation. The first thing being my husband's post, which came well before my own. He and I fought over that. I truthfully didn't love that he used real names, however, when I found out he posted. For the sake of transparency, I used real names as well. But with that being said, I went through with the difficult decision to serve him divorce papers. To really abbreviate things, I went to therapy as lots of you suggested, and I was assessed with a diagnosis for an obsessive-compulsive disorder in my second session, and in my third session, we discussed the whole car situation. And my personal therapist explained it to me in a way that made it hard to not feel awful for Case. The discussion we had covered quite a lot, but the common denominator in everything that's been going wrong has, in large part, been my husband. He's the reason Casey shared her car, he's the reason Alana got hurt driving on her own, and he's the reason we're set for court in barely a week and still don't have an attorney. And me. I don't know what I've been doing, but it hasn't been being a mother, if I'm honest. One of you asked me straight up why I was being a passenger, and I just don't have a good answer. I let my parents know about the divorce and they were a little concerned, but what I didn't expect was for Casey to reach out. The last time we talked was mostly her and my husband butting heads. I really thought she was about to turn me on a spit, but I've never heard her cry like that. At least not since she was much younger. I make a little bit more than my husband, but finding an apartment was brutal. Especially with Alana wanting to come with me. I don't think I was clear enough about how badly I want to pay Casey back before, but I do. Most of my money is in joint savings though, so there isn't much I can afford, but my husband wasn't going to back down. I won't lie. I was selfish. I begged Casey to drop my name from this suit. I told her I would pay what I could afford to write this second, which wasn't much in comparison, and she told me that it wasn't so much the car or the value on its own she wanted back. It was the security to have something of her own, and she listed off probably dozens of instances where Alana got first pick over her and it was very hard to refute. She told me that losing that much money sucked, which I fully understand, but the bigger loss to her was that her first big girl purchase, which a lot of friends and family were excited about, was now going to be remembered as a family-ending disaster. She told me that she knows I can't replace that. We agreed to breakfast next week and joint therapy, yes too, and her only condition was that I don't try at any point to save him from the suit, which I agreed to. Alana came to me even before my last post, saying she only drove so far because my now ex-husband pressured her into picking up the grocery order early for something he wanted to make. This also changed my perspective. I was under the impression that she was doing her own thing, but even my husband owned up to that, which ground my gears, but I put it together. Illegal driver in an expensive car, not insured and under pressure. Alana drove, but I've come to realize that my ex-husband seems to have a tendency to like to pressure people. He's pressured me a lot too. He probably pressured Casey into letting Alana drive at all. Which brings me back to her, and we finished our talk with better terms. I owe her so much more than breakfast out, but I'm just beyond grateful she's even willing to look at me. I've seen a lot of bold assumptions that I hate Casey, and that I vastly favor Alana, but I only feel the second part was ever accurate. I've never hated my own daughter. I was frustrated with her over something I've come to realize wasn't her fault. As of now, I'm just adjusting to a much quieter place, and to my phone buzzing non-stop. I've only been moved out for 5 days and Alana has seemed so much less anxious, to me at least. It's odd because my place now isn't anywhere near what the house is. But I think last night was probably the first time I've slept 8 hours since high school. Today was productive, and for Casey. I'll admit it. I hope she wins. I hope she gets her car and then some. As for the divorce, I don't want much material. I won't say no to it. I'd rather just have my share of joint savings and try to tackle my own issues, of which I guess I have more than I would have been willing to admit a month ago. I know I'm going to get pelted most likely, but I want you to know I'm thankful. The internet is mean, but it tells the truth. And however this turns out, it's largely your comments that helped me see what I was doing wrong, and who was enabling those things. And most importantly, how I could stop it. It's times like this where my dad would tell me I'm not lucky. I'm privileged, and I think that applies here. I'm privileged that my daughter didn't just laugh, even though she could and arguably should have. Now, for the next story. Whipta if I revealed to my late wife's family that she had been unfaithful during our marriage? On the day she passed, a guy we went to college and was kind of friends with sent her messages, asking for pictures of their last encounter and the way he talked. It seemed like it was recent, and it seemed that they talked often. I was able to get in her phone and laptop, as she didn't change her passwords because she would always ask to check my phone and I would ask for hers back, so I had the password. There wasn't much because she deleted everything or hid it very well, but the most recent messages she obviously couldn't delete them, so everything that came after her death was still there. While looking for the pictures he asked for, I found pictures of her and him in a rare deep in a random place at her work folders, at her laptop. In one of them she had short hair, which she only had right after we got engaged. So she was with him for at least 3 years out of our 6 years together. Also found pictures of 2 other guys, but I have no idea who they are, and there was no messages from either of them anywhere. I messaged the friend and told him that I knew, told him about the STD, and that I won't reveal it to anyone and want it to be kept a secret forever. I asked him if anyone else knew, and he said that his ex knew, but he would talk to her. I decided that for the sake of her parents and siblings, I would pretend she was a great person and let them have their beautiful memories with her. Anna's older brother Thomas, 34M, is a good friend of mine to this day. I would even go as far to say we are best friends. After 2 years of my wife's passing, I was ready to date again. Thomas said that he knew the perfect girl for me. He just wanted me to be sure I was ready for something serious before introducing each other. It was his sister-in-law, Laura, 27F. We knew each other only superficially, but never really talked before our first date. I fell for her quick and hard. We started dating, and about 3 months in, we were already telling each other I love yours, and I told her I was going to marry her. It has been a little less than 2 years, we are engaged, and I have never been this happy. I told her all about my relationship with Anna. I still have the evidence of what she did stored away in my computer just in case, and I showed it to Laura. She cried a little and comforted me, but I assured her I was fine, and that I was over it. The problem comes with Anna's family, especially her mom and sister. Ever since Anna's passing, every time they talk about her, people want to hear me talk. They ask me about her, try to include me in conversations about her. Anna was such a good cook, write my name. I loved when she and my name would banter. You remember my name, stuff like this. I was able to get by in the beginning by saying it was difficult for me to talk about her, that I was not ready. They let me be for a while, but ever since I started dating Laura, I couldn't use the "I'm not ready" excuse. Her friends, sister and mom get annoyed if I don't sound enthusiastic or depressed, learn that it's easier to look depressed. Also, if I talk about Anna in any way that isn't portraying her as an angel that came down to earth to bless us with her presence, I get side-eyed. Thankfully, Thomas and her father are great guys and don't push me too hard on this. Her dad is always thankful that I attend their family gatherings. As we like to talk about our field of work, he always says he considers me a son. Her mom and sister, though, they get pissy if I try to dodge the topic of Anna, and the sister even said it out loud once that it's obvious that I didn't love Anna. She apologized after, but I mean, she isn't wrong. By the end I didn't, and sure as hell didn't too now. Look, I'm over what happened. I don't feel hate for Anna anymore. I sometimes catch myself wishing she was alive just so I didn't have to pretend anymore. But also because her death was a tragedy, a lot of people loved her. Her friends organize a reunion for her birthday, and those are incredibly hard. And even though I know her AP will be there, I go because I know how much she meant to those people. But this is all starting to get to me because it's affecting Laura. I can't say I love her in front of these people. I can't even hug her, and Anna's sister gets all moody. Her best friends stopped speaking to Laura. They were also friends. Anna's mom even came to us at Thomas's birthday party last week and asked us to stop dancing to respect her grief. She also contacted my mom and Laura's parents to say that she was incredibly disappointed that I proposed to Laura so soon, saying that we are moving too fast. It's been 4 years. Even if she didn't cheat her, more than enough time has passed. I'm just over it, and I'm seriously considering telling all of them what happened, just to get the weight of my back. Comments. Comment 1. I always have a hard time understanding how someone who actually loves their partner could cheat on them. I know there are millions of research on this, on how yes, someone could still love a person and cheat on them too. But I personally could never believe it. I think it just doesn't go with what love means. Comment 2. I know that Thomas and Oop are besties, and that things all worked out great with Laura, but in retrospect it was probably not the greatest idea for Oop's own peace of mind to choose a partner who would bind him even closer to this family. Mill and Sil are wrong, but I can understand that it is a painful situation for them to see Anna's husband being happy with someone else within their own family circle, and even an ideal response would involve a lot of tension. Update. Something that I want to add because I didn't feel it was relevant before, but seeing so many people saying so many mean things about Anna made me feel like it's relevant, just for some people to understand how I feel about her. Maybe it isn't relevant, but I feel like saying it and putting out there. Anna loved me, she really did. She wasn't some monster that wanted me to be miserable and make me a fool. I saw the way she talked about me to other people. She loved me. She was worried I would divorce her and was talking to people about how to turn around our marriage, how to put it back on track. The issue was that she had a kink, and I absolutely had no desire to partake in it. She asked a couple times, once early in the relationship, and another time after we got married, and I refused unequivocally both times and was particularly judgmental about it. All the pictures I found were of her in those kink scenarios. So yeah, she was sexually frustrated and used those men to satisfy her kink. But she loved me, she was just very selfish, dumb and reckless. I really believe this. And I say all of this because she was a really terrible wife. She cheated on me for years because of a fucking kink. But she was not a terrible person, she was only a terrible partner. There is a reason so many people loved her so much. I went with my gut feeling of talking to Thomas. Seems like a lot of people came to the same conclusion, that this was the best way to deal with this. Me and Laura went to his house and we talked to him and his wife, Laura's sister. I told them that I was only bringing this up now because mine and Laura's lives are being affected by the way people perceive me as Anna's husband. People want me to be a memory of her life, when in reality, being reminded that I was married to her felt like a gut punch, and I'm at my limit. But I kept on trying because I love her family. And I know how much she meant to many people. I told them that I did not love the person she became when she died. That we were probably headed for divorce soon, even without the things I learned. The only reason I didn't share it with anyone was because I didn't see a point to tarnish her memory and change people's perception of her when it wouldn't matter to anyone, and it would only bring pain for those that loved her. Now though, this decision is biting me in the ass because I also have to act like she was perfect. The reason I told them this way was so they could opt in to knowing more if they wanted, but if they would rather stay ignorant to the situation they could. Thomas wanted to know everything, so I told them. He asked to see the proof and I told him that the pictures were sexual and graphic. It was not a good idea for him to see it. He asked his wife to see them. I showed it to her and she confirmed to him that it was real. And they were really bad. She actually flinched looking at them. He asked if it was only one time. I told him it was with 3 different guys and one of them went on for at least 3 years that I knew of. He was mad, cussed a lot, not at me, but at the situation. I started to regret everything at that point. He said, "Fuck. Why is she so fucking stupid?" He called Anna stupid a bunch of times. He asked for some time to think stuff over and went out. I left Laura and her sister talking and also went on a drive. About an hour later Thomas called me and asked me to come back to his house. He and Monica gave me a hug. She was crying a lot. He asked me what I wanted to do. I told him that all I want is to move on from this and be happy with Laura. He told me that he would handle his mom and sister, that I didn't need to worry about them anymore, but I should just distance myself from his family and Anna's friends for a while. He said I'm his brother, and that will never change. We all hugged it out, and that was it. My ex Sil has since reached out and told me that she knew Anna was cheating on me but thought we were working through it. Anna told her about a year before she died and said that she would come clean and try to work on the marriage. Now Thomas told her what happened and she has apologized a lot. Said that she has been basically ignoring her flaws ever since she died, but it has turned unhealthy for both her and her mom. She said she will help me with anything I need regarding this topic. Phil and Mill don't know anything and we will keep it that way. I will try to make time to hang out with my Phil from time to time, and considering him and my new Phil are good friends, me and Thomas have been talking about taking them fishing, golfing, maybe just going to a bar, stuff like that, at least once a month. And as for my ex Mill, I just keep my interactions to a minimum. So yeah, I think it worked out well. Another thing is that Laura wants to speed up our wedding planning, so hopefully we will get married in March or April. Before we were talking about having a long engagement, but there is no point in waiting, we both know what we want. And I'm happy. Very happy. Now, for the next story. I went no contact with my family when I turned 18, cutting all ties. Now, years later, they're reaching out and trying to mend the relationship. For whatever reason, my parents didn't want me. Once they had my brother, who we'll call Adam, I was pretty much ignored. They didn't abuse me, but I was pretty neglected. Everything was about Adam and how smart he was, or how athletic he was, or how he was just the best thing since sliced bread. Then there's me, a pretty average kid who got decent grades, didn't play sports, wasn't super popular, and liked to read books. I can't tell you how many times I heard, "Why can't you be more like Adam?" What made me cut off my family was when they didn't attend my high school graduation. Adam had gotten hurt that morning, a sprained ankle. I was eventually told and our parents rushed him to the ER, because he swore up and down he broke his leg. I only got one text from my mom telling me that they would make it up to me with a dinner to some family restaurant I mildly enjoyed. I was done after that. I had been used to be neglected or forgotten about, but I thought they would at least attend my graduation. I moved out that summer to go live with my cousin F30 and her wife in Arizona. Then I blocked them and they haven't been in my life since. My family did try to get into contact with me after I left, but it was mostly just telling me I was a bad daughter and overly sensitive and didn't care about Adam. Years later, I still don't have any contact with them. I'm now married to my husband John, I'm 26, who loves me and treats me like I matter. We also have a daughter 2F that I love more than the world itself. I have a close-knit group of friends and a job that makes decent money that I enjoy. I'm not saying my life is perfect or a dream or anything, but it's definitely leagues better than my childhood. Which brings me to last week, when my cousin called to tell me they had a message from my parents and my brother. This isn't anything new, but the message itself was. Instead of the usual blame game, my cousin told me that they wanted to apologize for everything. With Father's Day coming up, they were hoping I could come down to visit with my family and we could have a discussion. I know most people would scream, "Don't. It's a trap. They want something from you," but I'm not so sure. For one thing, none of them have ever reached out to apologize for anything towards me. But I still have connections to my extended family, so I have info about my parents and Adam from them. None of them are sick or dying and need an organ, they're not in debt, and need help with finances. My parents aren't hoping to retire and want to be supported. Adam doesn't need help with student loan scholarship kids, so it could be genuine. But at the same time, I don't know if I care enough to have a discussion. My life has been great without them, so why do I need them now? I wanted them as a kid, but not anymore. However, John says this could be a genuine olive branch since they never apologize. He might be right. Even if I don't agree to have contact, I might finally get some closure, or at least some answers as to why they didn't want me or why Adam was so much better than me. Should I hear them out, or just tell my cousin to tell them to go step on Legos? I'll take any advice at this point. Comments. Comment 1. I would put it all out there on FB for the whole family and friends to see. Because you just know that the parents aren't telling everyone harassing Oop the truth. How Mom has questionable morals and screwed Uncle Rick. How Dad took her back afterwards but treated Oop like crap, because he wouldn't get a paternity test, thinking she wasn't his, driving her to suicidal thoughts and cutting them off. And that if those defending the parents continue to do so, Oop will cut them off too because they're just as questionable as her parents. I know, we are meant to rise about. But screw that. Some things need to be out there. Comment 2. Parents' regret was so genuine and deep. They took 25 years to get around to sorting out their deep dark secret, thought about being grandparents, and then decided they had to apologize. Then they give Oop just 2 minutes on Zoom to digest and react to this crazy mess. And then turned on her when she didn't accept their apologies and cave in to their demand for her to be a good daughter immediately. No insight, no empathy, no understanding of what Oop has had to deal with for 25 years or that she'd made a good life for herself out of a horrible childhood. Oop's description of her parents as idiots is apt. They also seem to be the most shallow, self-involved people I've read about in quite a while. Update. Anyway, even though a lot of you warned me, I was just too curious to not talk to my family. Still, I told my cousin to tell them that I was not meeting them for Father's Day. I had always intended to reject the idea. I wanted to celebrate John and my Phil for being awesome, and that I wanted to do a Zoom meeting instead. I was expecting them to pitch a fit, but they agreed. Yesterday we met on Zoom. I made sure to have the meeting at my cousin's house because my house is my space and I don't like intruders, whether in person or virtual. John was hiding in the room out of sight, and my daughter was with my cousin's wife. Long story short, my mother is a revolving door, and both my parents are idiots. To make it a longer story, my mother had an affair with my Uncle Rick M60, my dad's older brother, and caught God after she found out she was pregnant. My dad forgave her and agreed to raise me as his as long as they never did a paternity test. Apparently it was easier to act as my father if he didn't have confirmation that I was his brother's child. Spoiler alert, I am not Rick's kid. Unfortunately for me, I have always been my dad's bio daughter. Rick apparently can't have kids, and my dad only found out on Mother's Day when Rick's wife made a joke about it. So my parents just resented me all this time because they were convinced I was Rick's child, despite not having proof. It didn't help that I was just so mediocre compared to Adam, like how Rick is compared to my dad. What I mean by that is that my dad has a fancy desk job in a titled position, and Rick is just your average truck driver. So clearly that must have meant I couldn't be my father's child. They begged for forgiveness. My mom tried to blame my dad for not taking the test. My dad tried to blame it on my mom for being a truck stop for Rick. But they both wanted me to forgive them because they were sick with regret of how they treated me over a misunderstanding. They swore up and down that, even if they weren't always there for me, they still loved me and were still my parents, and we can be a real family now that the misunderstanding was finally cleared up. Even Adam was pushing hard for it. People asked about our relationship in my last post, but there's not really much to say. He was like a roommate. I was never bullied by him, and he didn't really interact with me, though he definitely reveled in our parents' favoritism. Still, they were all very sorry, but I had to understand why my parents acted like they did. Now everyone wants to make it up to me, and be part of my life again, and be the best grandparents and uncle they can be to my daughter. I obviously told them no. Anyone with eyes could see they just wanted forgiveness to make themselves feel better. I told them that my life was better without them and I didn't need them anymore. They got mad at that, and called me heartless and cruel, and a bad daughter. For being so unforgiving, and for not being more understanding towards them. Because it was just a mistake that I had a shitty childhood, and had to play second fiddle to Adam. I just told them to forget I existed and ended the call. Then I burst into tears, and my husband had to comfort me. Their insults didn't hurt me. Even after all this time of no contact, I'm used to that. But all that time feeling like shit and suicidal and wondering what I did to deserve my mistreatment was just a waste. All because my parents were massive douche canoes with chicken nuggets for brains. I'm glad I didn't waste money to go see them. I'm also glad I heard them out for my own closure. They're trying to aggressively reach out and contact me, even getting other relatives to do so. I've already got a bunch of emails and texts this morning ranging from pleads to just hear them and insults about being cruel and heartless. I've been ignoring them, because I've washed my hands of my family, and will continue to remain in no contact. So yeah, thank you for all your advice. It meant a lot. Now, for the next story. My boyfriend's ex before their breakup, revealing surprising details about his cleaning and dating habits. I 28 female and my BF 30 male, who we'll call Steve, have been together for 2 years and have been living together for 8 months. I was cleaning our apartment when I found a note in the back of a cabinet. For context's sake, I'll copy it below. Dear Steve's future girlfriend. I know it's you reading this because he'd never clean back here. I'm putting this here because I'm leaving him soon and want to warn you about him. 1. He will not clean. 2. He will not listen. 3. He will make everything feel like it's your fault. It's not your fault. He's just an incompetent man. I'm leaving him. I suggest you do the same. Best wishes, Natalia. Name changed. I read the note and brought it to show to him, and hear his response. He immediately ripped it up and said not to listen to it, that she was crazy and untrustworthy. I told him that the fact that he hasn't found it in the 5 years since they broke up is a red flag to me, because it does mean he's never cleaned back there, and that he has been cleaning less and less since I moved in. He told me that it wasn't a problem before the note, This is just his ex continuing to manipulate and ruin his life, and I was letting it work. We continued to argue along the same lines, and I eventually left to spend the night at a friend's place. Steve has been a great boyfriend so far. He gets along with my family. He has given me gifts and flowers, and always tells me how much he loves me. He's not wrong that the cleaning hasn't really been brought up before. The note made me realize it had been less and less, and that we needed to have a full conversation. He texted me afterwards saying he's sorry that I felt like I had to leave, but that it's an asshole move for me to take a note over our 2-year relationship, and to leave him and our pets alone. I don't know what to do, or what to believe right now. I'm contemplating trying to find and reach out to Natalia. Her name in real life is pretty unique, so I think I could find her. Steve thinks I should come back home and let it go. That his past should affect our future. I feel like I could be the asshole because everything Steve has said about Natalia does make it sound like she was manipulative and petty throughout their relationship. But I don't know what to trust. Edit: I realized I didn't clarify enough about the points, especially the cleaning. Thought I'd add it here. When we moved in together 8 months ago, the cleaning was 50/50. Since then he's been doing things less and less, and I'd say it's at like 70/30, maybe 60/40, if he listens to me right away. It depends on the week. I have to remind him to do things like bring his plates to the sink, or take out the trash, and I didn't have to before. The dishes will pile up unless I do them, to the point he's had leftover food mold on the plates. I'm not a confrontational person, so I was just asking him to fix it when it came up. The note made me reflect on it more, and try to have an actual full conversation, and I will say I didn't feel listened to when I talked to him about it. I tried to use the note to start a conversation about cleaning, and he got so stuck on that I was listening to his ex instead of him, that he wouldn't listen to what I think are valid concerns. He thinks I'm letting the note have confirmation bias. So no matter what he says, I'll think he's in the wrong. Also, I didn't leave him permanently. This all happened yesterday, and I only spent one night at a friend's because I didn't feel like our conversation was going anywhere last night, and he wouldn't let me sleep until I let it go. I'm going back today and wanted to get advice and feedback before I do. Edit 2: I appreciate all these comments with advice. I'm heading back to our place now. My plan is to first apologize for immediately bringing him the note without thinking of his feelings, and validate that it's hard to have an ex's message found. That being said, you're all right that I've been letting the cleaning stuff get away. I don't want to be in a relationship where I have to ask him repeatedly to clean. It was pointed out to me that he should have cleaned the shelves during his move from his ex's place. The fact that it hasn't been touched in 5 years is forcing me to take the not seriously. I don't want to throw away 2 years, so I am going to ask him to come up with some clear cleaning expectations with me and designated chores. I will make it clear that cleaning is absolutely a deal breaker for me. It's his decision on how he wants to respond. I'll try to update you all. Again, thank you so much for the advice. Comments. Comment 1. So where would your ex hide a note to warn a future boo about your worst character flaws? The bottom of the vacuum would not work in my house, because it gets jammed with pet hair all the time, so we've all had to become pros at disassembling it. Maybe one of the freezer drawers. Or no. One of the half-empty bottles of spices. Somehow we always have a bunch of jars that are almost but not quite empty. And you don't notice them until after you've bought a new jar, but that's still too full to empty the old one into, so you hang on to them both, and you forget about the almost empty one, and the whole situation just keeps repeating itself, until you find you have jars of cumin numbering in the double figures and truly disturbing amount of star anise at the back of the cupboard. That would be mine. Seriously though, glad she's been able to remove herself from the situation so cleanly. It can't be often, as one would hope, that the stars align to get someone out of that kind of relationship, before it's Netflix special levels of awful. Comment 2. I'm glad you got out. I relate to a lot of this, but my Steve is currently in jail for arson. He set his own apartment on fire with his pets present, and other people were obviously in the same building. No one was hurt that I know of. But his little frogs he bought with me were never found. His cat and snake were fine. But it just blew my mind he could ever endanger his pets that he loved. This was not the person I thought he was. Update. I followed your advice from the last post and tried to have a calm discussion with Steve. When I apologized for confronting him with the note, he seemed to take that as an admission of guilt and refused to listen to anything else. I had come up with a list of specific instances of not cleaning like many of you suggested, and he said I was using lists just like his manipulative ex did. So yeah, the crazy ex thing you all said was a red flag was definitely true. When I realized the conversation wasn't going anywhere, he even tried to block me from leaving. That's when I knew it was done, and left immediately. 2 years down the drain, but I'm glad I had the wake-up call before it was too late. I will let him cool off and then will ask my brother to come with me to grab my things while he's not there. He has a strict work schedule, so I think it'll work out. I am planning on leaving a note there, but probably a little longer with the advice to not show it to him. I'm leaving it in the exact same place, so if he doesn't learn his lesson about cleaning, it'll come to haunt him. All he has to do is clean. The biggest surprise out of all of this is that I didn't reach out to Natalia, she reached out to me. Apparently he borrowed his friend's phone to call her, screaming that she's ruining his life still. The fact that she blocked him and he still had her number memorized just further confirms he was the crazy ex, not her. Natalia found me on social media and wanted to make sure I was okay, and was especially concerned that he'd gaslight me like he tried with her. I thanked her for leaving me the note and saving me time. We scheduled coffee for Thursday afternoon. I wanted to thank you all again for the advice. Especially the person who posted the Love is Respect website. I took the healthy relationship quiz after our conversation and it wasn't great. You called out how he was weaning me into an unhealthy relationship so well. For now, my friend said I can stay until I find a new place. I have emergency savings and a decent job, so I'm in a privileged place when it comes to this messy breakup, and I'm just trying to feel grateful for that. Update 1. First, I want to respond to the comments saying I broke up a 2-year relationship over a note and chores. No, I broke up a 2-year relationship because when I tried to come up with solutions to an unequal situation, his response was to yell and try to convince me there was no problem except me. The final straw was when he physically blocked me from leaving the house after he was screaming at me. That is not okay, and no one should stay with a man who responds to conflict like that. The actual update: I wound up texting the post to Natalia last night and she thought it was great. She, like some of you, asked me about the pets. For context, one of the things Steve and I connected on was our love for little creatures. It's why I thought he was such a great guy. Because if he could take such intricate care of his lizard, he could do the same with me. I was very wrong. He has one lizard he bought before me, and then we bought 2 frogs together. I have a snake I brought with me when I moved in. I was planning on waiting until he cooled down to go grab my things and the frogs and snake, thinking he would never hurt them, but Natalia changed my mind. She said he could get destructive when he's mad, and was concerned about the safety of my little guys. I immediately knew I couldn't wait until later this week, and reached out for a meeting with the landlord for early this morning. I wound up FaceTiming with Natalia last night, and we had a long discussion. Natalia is a lawyer, and told me that in our state, landlords are required to let me get out of the lease I signed in cases of domestic violence. She also told me that his yelling, gaslighting, and refusing to let me leave are all types of abuse. It's definitely hard for me to sit with that. But the Love is Respect relationship quiz helped me also realize that a bit more last night. Apparently his constant messaging and control over what I wore and when were signs of abuse too. Anyway, this morning Natalia volunteered to come talk to the landlord with me alongside my brother. As soon as he heard the word lawyer, he was on top of it and said I could break the lease, but would still have to pay for all of August even though I'm leaving 3 days early. I felt like that was fair. He also messaged Steve to say the apartment needed to be empty for emergency maintenance all day today so I could pack my things. Steve messaged back that he was at work all day and wouldn't be home until 6 p.m. When I got into the apartment, it was a mess. He had broken my dishes that I had brought with me on the ground and left the shards laying about. My clothes were ripped up and scattered around our room. It was disgusting and heartbreaking. He left his lizard alone, but opened the tank doors for our frogs and my snake. Luckily the frogs were still chilling in their enclosure, but my snake had gotten loose. This made me the most mad, as she could have gotten cut on the broken plates. I feel so fortunate that she was just hiding in the closet corner and I was able to pack her up safely in her enclosure again. All my things are packed and I'm writing this as my brother drives me back to my friend's house right now. Natalia told me that she actually left 3 notes, one in the cabinet, one on the underside of the vacuum, and one in the crumb catcher of the toaster. While we were there, we checked to see if the notes were still there. The one on the vacuum was, but it looks like Steve did clean out the crumb catcher at least once in the past 5 years. He never told me he had already found a note in our conversations, so it caught me by surprise. Natalia and I left the vacuum note as is and replaced the cabinet one. I wasn't comfortable leaving my name on a new note, so my addition was a handout on healthy vs unhealthy relationships and a QR code to the quiz that woke me up. I'll put it in the comments. I'm not sure if I can have an outside link. Natalia said if he didn't find the notes in those 5 years, especially after the move, he probably won't find them again. I'm inclined to agree, especially given he did find one, but then didn't even clean the rest of the house to see if there was any more. Steve doesn't make sense to me, and seeing the state of the apartment really woke me up to the fact that I have no idea who he is. The Steve I knew would never put animals in danger, but I don't think I really ever knew Steve. To the people saying it's pathetic that I broke up my relationship because of chores and Reddit, I encourage you to reflect on the subtle ways that abuse starts. This Reddit thread woke me up to it, and gave me the resources to get out safely before it got any worse. I also made an appointment for a therapist. I'm very lucky that my job is good insurance, so I should be able to work through this relationship, and am hoping to focus on boundaries and my people-pleasing habits, so I never find myself in this situation again. To the people wishing that Natalia and I would get together, we had a good laugh about it. Natalia is engaged to a wonderful man who cleans, listens, and reflects. She said there's a phenomenon that when people break up with their awful ex, their soulmate can quickly follow. I'm hoping that's true. Regardless, I do think I got a good friend out of this. Especially since Natalia is a snake mom too. This is my final update. I hope if you learn anything from my experience, it's that abuse doesn't start right away. First there's love bombing, gifts, and pretty words. And then slowly they test how much you'll put up with. You should never have to put up with anything. Especially moldy freaking plates. Now, for the next story. Ada for asking my husband to block his female friend who warned him against marrying me. I 26 female want my husband 27 male to immediately block one of his friends Kyla 27 female. He thinks I am overreacting, and wants opinions from some cool-headed people on if I am just acting crazy, or this is something that would cross the line for you. My husband has a group of 8 friends he is close with since his college days. Kyla is one of his friends. When my husband and I started dating, he introduced me to all of them, and everyone was very friendly. I used to hang out with them frequently. I am an introvert, and so is my husband. I would always ask him to spend time alone as being in social settings just saps all my energy away. His friends, and especially Kyla, always made it a point to tell me how he hangs out with them less after he started dating me. Kyla also had a weird energy around me. If I was with my husband, she would be the most friendliest with me. However, as soon as he walked away, she acted like I did not exist. My husband hates to be touched by others, we both are ND. But Kyla would always tease him by trying to hug him, mess his hair, etc. I never felt she was flirting with him, but just teasing him to make him annoyed. Overall, she just feels like a person who has a severe social boundary issue. We got married 2 years ago, and things have been great between us. Last week we had our second marriage anniversary and invited a bunch of people. His friends stayed back after all the guests left and we were all drinking and chatting. One of his friends, Jen, became a bit tipsy and started complimenting me on how beautiful our house is, how I care for my husband, and how he has changed for the better since marriage. Everyone was laughing at my husband at how much of a slob he was when he was single. Jen then pointed at Kyla and said, "You better pay up, cause you had bet that their marriage would not even last for 2 years." Everyone became silent and started changing the topic. I also did not want to spoil the mood and let it go, but it stuck in my head. After everyone left, I asked my husband what Jen was talking about. He also had noticed Jen saying that and was ready with a full explanation. He told me the story of what happened when we got engaged. When he proposed to me, he had not told his friends that he was going to do that. We went on a trip to Puerto Rico, and he surprised me there. We put our engagement pictures on Instagram while we were on the trip, and it was a big surprise to everyone, as we were only dating for 1 year. When he came back and met all his friends, everyone congratulated him. However, Kyla started ranting about how he was a fool to propose so quickly, and she felt that I was not the right girl for him. Seems like she said some unkind things about me, implying I was a gold digger. My husband's family is wealthy, but so is mine. She had said that she bet we would break up within 2 years if we got married. That is why Jen was taunting her about how happy my husband was with me. I was very furious at this point, as I feel this is something he should have told me. I asked him to tell me truthfully if he had ever dated Kyla, or had any history with her, as he has always told me that he has never dated anyone from his friend group. He said that he has of course not dated, or hooked up with Kyla. However, Kyla had asked him out a few times when they were in college, and he always politely declined. I asked why he said no to her, and he said he just does not have any romantic feelings for her. I can see that because my husband does have a type based on me or the other people he has dated in the past, and Kyla is the opposite of that. I am just mad at her for saying bad things about me, especially after knowing that we were already engaged and betting against my marriage. I told my husband that he needs to minimize contact with Kyla, and she is not invited to parties at our house anymore. He feels I am being too harsh for something she said almost 3 years ago. He also pointed out that she has been very supportive to both of us and also helped a lot during our wedding arrangements. He feels she is just blunt and forthright when she speaks, but does not mean those things. He told me to take some time and calm down, and we would revisit this topic in a week. He is worried this will completely change the dynamics within his friend group. Am I the for wanting him to block her and stop inviting her to our house? Do you think I am overreacting? I think betting against our marriage and bad-mouthing me behind my back seems like a huge betrayal. I am also mad at my husband that he kept this fact from me, and also never told me that Kyla asked him out during college days. Am I just being crazy and reactive? How would you react in this situation? I don't want to distance my husband from his friends, but I also do not want to see that bitch Kyla's face again. Comments. Comment 1. I hope this is fake because I can't imagine being 27 and making a fake profile of the ex of your friend to mess with his marriage, while being friends with the wife you were betting they wouldn't last. Who has the time and the energy for it? Like to many steps and for what? I wouldn't feel good about being the second choice of someone. The choice of if my marriage imploded and I had no one, I guess I would choose you. And heck, that wasn't even a sure bet. Maybe hubby would just prefer his type and that's it. Comment 2. Oop isn't a bad person for wanting to distance herself from someone who seems intent on causing drama in her marriage. If this story is true, Kyla's behavior is problematic, and keeping her at arm's length is probably the right move. But here's where things start to feel off. Kyla waits until after their second anniversary to reveal that Oop's husband had broken up with his long-term girlfriend just 2 months before dating Oop, and had swore to her that he would stay away from dating anyone. Only after dropping this potential rebound bombshell does the whole Joanna drama unfold. The timing is just too convenient. Why wouldn't Kyla have used this information earlier if she really thought Oop was taking advantage of him? It doesn't add up. Real life rarely unfolds with such neat story arcs. It's hard not to wonder if we're reading more of a creative writing exercise than actual relationship drama. Update. I was upset and had asked my husband to stop talking to her, because she disrespected our marriage. Since then, Kyla has pulled some really pathetic shit to stir up issues between my husband and I. After I wrote the post, my husband was trying to convince me that Kyla's was just joking when she made those comments, and it happened so long ago. Kyla messaged me the next day apologizing me for her comments, and also not making more efforts to connect with me. I accepted her apology and started warming up to her. She started inviting me for brunches and girls' night out with them, and I felt included in their friend group. One day during brunch, I brought up why Kyla really thought our marriage would not work out. Kyla told me that my husband broke up with his long-term ex-girlfriend Joanna 2 months before he started dating me. I knew that part, but Kyla told me that my husband was really heartbroken after the breakup and swore to her that he would stay away from dating anyone. When he met me, my mom set us up on a blind date. She was surprised how quickly we hit it off. Kyla thought that I was his rebound relationship, but when he proposed to me within a year, she was worried that he was making a very rash decision. My husband's family is rich, and she thought it was unwise for him to marry so quickly without knowing me well. She did not know enough about me and that my family is also very well off. That is why she was concerned that I was taking advantage of his vulnerable state. She apologized to me and said that it was wrong for her to assume that, and over the years, she has seen how happy we are together. I appreciated her honesty, and Kyla and I became good friends since then, and started hanging out more frequently. Around 2 months ago, my husband went for a conference to Seattle for 3 nights after he came back. I got a "Hey girly" message on Instagram from Joanna, his ex. She told me that my husband contacted her a few months ago, and they met in Seattle during the conference, and she could give me more proof if I wanted. I went through my husband's Instagram, but he seems to have blocked her. I made a mistake of mentioning it to Kyla, as she is the only person honest to me about Joanna, and she went in detective mode to help me. She was still friends with Joanna on Instagram, as they all went to college together, and opened her profile. The message sent to me was from a different profile, with no followers. We checked her photos, and we saw that she attended the same conference as my husband did in Seattle. Kyla suggested I should ask Joanna for more proof, and also ask my husband about the same before assuming the worst. I asked my husband if he met Joanna, and he said yes. He told me he just met her in the expo hall, and chatted with her for a few minutes. I asked him why he did not mention it to me, and he told me it was just a quick conversation, and he did not think too much of it. He asked me how I knew it, and I told him that Kyla mentioned that she saw her pictures at the conference, and I thought he might have seen her. I messaged Joanna again to share more proof. She told me that they had been chatting for the past 2 months and planned to attend the conference together. She shared a log of their messages, where my husband was actively flirting with her. The screenshots did look legit, but I did not see any of those messages in my husband's Instagram profile. I talked to Kyla about it, as I did not know what to believe. I messaged Joanna to tell us what happened between them, and she told me that he invited her to the room at nights and they hooked up, but she does not have any photos as he insisted they do not take any pictures together. I immediately realized it was fake and messaged Joanna to fuck off. She kept on insisting they were telling the truth, and she spent the nights with my husband in his room on all 3 nights. I told her that my husband and I were playing video game Sea of Thieves for almost 2 to 3 hours each night after his dinner, as that is what we do to catch up when he is away. Unless Joanna was sitting behind him watching us play until he fell asleep, she was full of shit. I also told my husband about the whole incident, and he told me I should have come to him sooner. He told me that he has gone no contact with Joanna ever since they broke up, and he just ran into her at the conference. He told me I could check his phone and everything to verify that he has blocked her everywhere. I told him I do not need to, and Joanna might have run into him, and just decided to fuck his life by making up stuff. When all the friends met that weekend, my husband and I told everyone about how Joanna sent messages to me and faked everything. Kyla was also telling what happened as she had told her about it. Kyla accidentally let it slip out that it's luckily, we are nerds and played video games at nights before sleeping, else props go to Joanna for making up a convincing story. I never told Kyla about the video game stuff. I just told her Joanna is full of shit, and I blocked her. It took me until I came home to connect the dots. I told my husband about it, and he confronted Kyla. She denied it, and told him that I told her about the video game stuff on a phone call, but I don't remember doing it. We have since decided to keep our distance from Kyla. Kyla has called me multiple times to meet up, but I just make up reasons that I am busy. I do not know why she did it, but at this point, I am not interested in it, and we have decided to just see her on social occasions and avoid hanging out with her as much as possible. I feel stupid that she played me for a fool, and I should have not gone to her when Joanna started messaging me. In hindsight, it seems suspicious that Kyla started telling me about Joanna, and at the same time, Joanna claimed to have an affair with my husband. I do not know what her intentions are, but I am mad enough that I will avoid her as much as possible. I wish I had some real proof that she was the one messaging me, so that I could expose her. I also feel bad for suspecting my husband. But I am glad my husband and I are on the same page now. Now, for the next story. Am I the idiot for telling another gym member that she should consider wearing a bra due to discomfort in our shared space? I 25 female hate wearing bras. They're uncomfortable, constricting, and expensive. With work from home, I spent the last year and a half basically never wearing a bra and got used to it. Quite frankly, my boobs are non-existent anyways. I recently started going to the gym again and started working out braless. I should note that up until now, no one has ever pointed out anything wrong with me not wearing a bra. However, in the middle of a set of squats, yes, mid-squat, a guy comes up to me, taps me on the shoulder to get my attention, and tells me that my nipples are poking through my shirt. I get really irritated because why is this guy staring at my nipples in the first place, and then stopping me mid-set to inform me? I get really annoyed, try to finish my set, but then this fucker literally grabs the bar, as I ascend and re-racks it for me. He claimed it looked like I was having trouble with the last rep, and that he had come over to make sure I could do it, then noticed my nipples. I'm really fucking pissed off at this point, and told him I didn't need his help finishing my set, and why the fuck was he looking at my chest in the first place? He said he was going to spot me, but then noticed my chest and thought it'd be inappropriate. I pointed out that the safety bar was set, so even if I did fail the set, he wasn't needed. But he just insisted people at gyms look out for each other, and that going forward, I should probably wear a bra so other people wouldn't get uncomfortable, and that it may help me stay more balanced in my squats. I'm literally the only girl at the weights section of the gym at the moment, and other guys who were squatting and failed sets never have to worry about this shit. I've seen guys fail multiple sets in a row and no one ever rushes to their aid. But I have a very slight pause, and everyone thinks I need rescuing. So I'm now really annoyed, and also kind of uncomfortable that this guy I've never spoken to in my life thinks he's helping me, and then has the audacity to tell me how to dress. So I tell him you have bigger boobs and nipples than I do. Maybe you should wear a bra so people won't get uncomfortable, and you won't fail your squats. He then got really defensive, saying he was just trying to help, then called me a bitch. Honestly, I'm not sure if I overreacted, but I'm still kind of pissed off, so maybe that's clouding my judgment. Ada? Verdict, not the idiot. To add, I'm not sure if people think I'm walking around, and it's extremely obvious my nipples are showing. I actually really hate constricting clothes. My t-shirt size is X small, but I wear size large to the gym, and pretty much everywhere lately, and you can't tell my stomach from my chest. My nipples might have been showing a little more while squatting because I was wearing a lifting belt. Comments. 1. Ugh. I feel for this woman. As a woman who used to be a frequent gym goer, the number of guys who felt the need to insert themselves into my workout was huge. I've even had guys take weights off my bar in between sets, because women shouldn't lift that much. One guy gave me a huge list of everything I was doing wrong with my squat, and when I told him all the point would be valid if I wasn't low bar squatting, he responded with what's a low bar squat. He wasn't impressed when I told him that maybe he shouldn't give advice if he doesn't even know what lift people are doing. Fuck that guy and every guy like him. But props to the guys who are actually supportive, and I have a huge virtual high five for the guy who saw me deadlifting 200 pounds and low whistled and said, "Hell yeah girl, you get that shit. I still remember you." 2. What an absolute sleeveball. If he can't concentrate because he might see a nipple poking trough or shirt, then it's not his muscles he needs to work on. No one should be forced to dress a certain way to make others comfortable, and this dude thinking he can police that says a whole lot more about him than a lack of bra does of OP. I have fairly big boobs and sometimes wear tank tops and similarly tight clothes, but I haven't worn any kind of bra in over 2 years. It's an extra layer of clothes I don't need cause I'm already boiling and it hurts my back. If someone thinks a bra affects my eolites to function as a regular human, then that stupidity is on them, and if they think their opinion on my appearance is welcome, then I'm more than happy to tell them where to shove it. Update. Thanks so much for all the feedback on my OP. Couple people said it was just a validation post, but TBH, after you go off on someone like that publicly, getting a lot of attention, you kind of do feel like an asshole, even when you feel it's justified, so yeah. I finally did start wearing bras again, and not at all because of this incident, but because I'd been dealing with depression that made me not really try to get dressed in general, not just at the gym, and dressing for success has been a small way to try to get myself back into a better place mentally. Anyways, the guy goes to the gym roughly the same time I do most days, so unfortunately I did have to see him again. Even though I really wanted to grab his bar out of fake concern while he was squatting, I mostly ignored him. Until 2 days ago. I was deadlifting and recording myself to check my form. The guy comes over and says something like, "You know, sumo is cheating, right?" I get this comment a lot, mostly from men half joking, and it's annoying, but I just completely ignore him. He repeats it a little louder, and I continue to ignore him. I guess he sees that I was recording myself, because then he asks if I have an Instagram. I don't post my lifts on Instagram, and if he could follow me. I keep ignoring him. Finally, he says something like, "See, your form is so much better now that you're wearing a bra," and I fucking lost it again. I screamed at him that he's a disgusting, harassing piece of shit. Honestly, I don't remember exactly what I said, but it was, admittedly, very vulgar and got a lot of attention. A worker came over and asked if something was wrong, and I said that the guy was sexually harassing me for 2 weeks, and asked to speak to a manager. The guy denied it and said he was just trying to help, and that I was being sensitive. But either way, the manager asked what was going on and got both our stories. Because I had been recording my lifts, I actually had a video of him where he commented on my bra, so the manager gave him a 30-day ban, and told me that if he ever bothered me again to let her know, and she would permanently ban him. So I feel kind of vindicated, but I also feel a little frustrated that just one man actually saw consequences for this kind of behavior towards women in the gym. It's nice to see someone have repercussions for their actions, but it's also exhausting dealing with this kind of thing constantly at the gym, even if it isn't quite as overt. But I guess I'll have to keep calm and lift on.